Good evening. Welcome to the show. Tonight we're talking about something truly wonderful, something that shapes the minds of our future generations, children's literature. Yes, those colourful, heartwarming tales of fluffy bunnies and friendly bears that teach our kids valuable lessons about sharing, friendship and, well, apparently the finer points of fatal DUIs and narcotics raids. Because it seems the world of children's publishing has taken a sharp, frankly terrifying turn into the absurdly grim. We've discovered a collection of books so mind-bogglingly inappropriate, so tonally catastrophic, they make Dr. Seuss look like a heavily redacted government document. These aren't just slightly off-color jokes, they are masterpieces of catastrophic judgment. Imagine, if you will, a pop-up book where turning a page reveals not a friendly giraffe, but the tragic aftermath of a high-speed chase. Picture a touch-and-feel book where the texture you're feeling isn't a sheep's woolly coat, but the cirrhotic liver of a cartoon penguin. This is the literary landscape we're exploring tonight. A world where bedtime stories are less about sweet dreams and more about inducing night terrors and a profound sense of existential dread in anyone over the age of 4. So buckle up, pour yourself something strong, ideally not from a sippy cup, because we're about to journey deep into a rabbit hole of children's entertainment so dark it makes the original Grimm's fairy tales read like a corporate HR pamphlet on workplace safety. We're going to look at these literary train wrecks one by one and ask the simple question, who on earth thought this was a good idea? The answer, as you'll soon see, is almost as disturbing as the books themselves. Let's begin. Let's start with a gentle entry into this genre, a book titled, and I am not making this up, What the Cunning Little Juliet County Sheriff's Office Deputy Heard. It sounds like a charming little story about a friendly officer listening to the sounds of the town, doesn't it? Perhaps the moo of a cow? The toot of a train? But no, this is a pop-up book, and the first thing that pops up is a grisly 2-car pileup. The text, in a cheerful, curly font, reads, "The deputy heard a crunch. Was it a fatal DUI? Lift the flap to see. And when you do, you're greeted with a detailed illustration of the coroner's van. It's less pat the bunny and more prod the body bag. The absurdity only escalates from there." The next page features a pop-up narcotics raid on a suburban home. The text asks, what's that bang? Is it fireworks for the 4th of July? No, children, it's not. It's a battering ram because, as the pop-up reveals, Mr. Flanagan next door has been running a meth lab in his basement. The book helpfully includes little baggies of pretend sugar for an interactive experience. This is not just a story, it's a hands-on lesson in evidence collection for discerning toddlers. It's preparing them for a future, just probably not the one their parents had in mind. And just when you think it can't possibly get any more deranged, we get to the grand finale. The cunning little deputy hears a heated argument. The book prompts, is that a mummy and daddy fighting over the TV remote? Of course not, you naive little reader. It's a domestic dispute involving the main character's dope-dealing boyfriend, a pop-up table of illegal firearms, and a final, heartwarming scene where the boyfriend is tasered into submission. The pop-up element for the taser even makes a little zapping sound. It's a story that truly teaches the ABCs, arrests, bail, and convictions. This book isn't just a story, it's a public service announcement written by someone who has clearly lost a bet. It takes the innocent format of a pop-up book, a source of pure joy and wonder for children, and uses it to illustrate the bleakest aspects of law enforcement. It's a masterpiece of tonal dissonance, a book that says, good night, sleep tight, and don't forget to check under your bed for federal informants. An absolute classic. Next up, we have a heartwarming tale of friendship, or at least that's what the cover, featuring a smiling boy and a penguin, would have you believe. The title, however, is a bit of a giveaway. Wasamota lost intellectually and Muista Chunkin Gorgorgorongongongoro found brain damage with advanced dementia and cirrhosis of his liver. Yes, that's the actual title. It's a touch-and-feel book, which adds a layer of deeply unsettling interactivity. The story follows Wasamota, a boy described as intellectually lost, on his adventures with his penguin friend, whose name is, and I'll try my best here, Muista Chunkin Gorgorgorongongongoro. The book invites children to experience the world through touch. Feel Wasamota's smooth brain, the first page encourages, next to a patch of slick vinyl. Now feel Meister Chunky's bumpy cirrhotic liver, it says on the next, with a texture like gravel mixed with regret. This isn't just a story, it's a tactile journey through a series of increasingly alarming medical diagnoses. You don't just read about the characters' afflictions, you get to physically engage with them. which is a choice. A bold, baffling, and frankly horrifying choice. It's like a medical textbook was cursed by a vindictive witch and turned into a board book. The narrative arc, if you can call it that, follows the pair as their conditions worsen. Wasamoto's intellectual decline is illustrated by increasingly confusing mazes that have no solution, while the penguin's journey is a tour of his failing organs. Pat Muista Chunky's jaundiced yellow feathers, says one page, featuring a patch of stiff, sticky fur. The book seems to be teaching children about empathy, but the lesson is buried under such a mountain of medical jargon and grim, tactile horror that the only thing a child will learn is a deep-seated fear of penguins and internal medicine. The story culminates, as you might expect, in a tragic yet comically overwrought demise. On the final page, Wasamoto, now completely lost, wanders into a walk-in freezer, while Muista Chunky, his liver finally giving out, collapses beside him. The final touch-and-feel element? A cold, glittery patch labelled "Feel the eternal frost" of their final resting place. It's a book that starts with a disability and a disease, and somehow manages to find a way to make it even more depressing. It's a tragedy of such epic, absurd proportions that it circles all the way back around to being hilarious. If you thought we'd reached the peak of educational inappropriateness, allow me to introduce you to a coloring book. Its title is A Mouthful of Pure Joy: The Incompetent Condemned Prisoner, Inmate Man with a Defibrillator and the Scheduled Lethal Injection Execution. This isn't just a coloring book, it's an activity book, promising hours of fun for the budding young sociopath in your family. The premise is simple. A prisoner is scheduled for execution, but he's so incompetent he keeps accidentally resuscitating himself with a defibrillator he found in his maximum security cell. The logic is flawless. The first activity is a dot-to-dot puzzle. Connect the dots to reveal the 3-drug cocktail used in lethal injections. Pancuronium bromide has never been so fun. The book encourages kids to color in the phenobarbital, use a sleepy, dreamy blue. It's a hands-on lesson in state-sanctioned killing presented with the cheerful energy of a Saturday morning cartoon. The central conflict of the story is the kids' mission to help the execution go smoothly. "Oh no," one page exclaims, "the incompetent inmate man has shocked himself back to life. Can you solve the maze to find the correct dosage and help the warden finish the job?" But the fun doesn't stop at pharmacology. There's a whole section on civic engagement. One page features a blank pardon letter to the governor, which the child is instructed to tear up. Another activity involves colouring in a scene where the governor is being kidnapped by concerned citizens who just want to see justice served. The caption reads, "The governor won't listen, colour this van getaway green to help the nice men take him on a surprise trip until the execution is over. It's vigilante justice for the Crayola crowd. This book is a masterclass in making the macabre mundane." It takes one of the most contentious and grim subjects imaginable, the death penalty, and turns it into a series of whimsical puzzles and games. It's a colouring book that asks children not just to be passive observers of a deeply flawed system, but active, enthusiastic participants. You can just imagine the conversations on the playground. My mummy says capital punishment is a complex ethical issue with no easy answers. Oh yeah? Well, I coloured in a successful execution and got a gold star. Let's shift gears quite literally to our next literary gem. This one is a sound book, the kind where you press a button and hear a corresponding noise. The title sets the scene perfectly. The visibly intoxicated, unable to stand without assistance, runaway woman driver. It's the heartwarming story of a woman, let's call her Brenda, on a journey. A very, very wobbly journey. The book is read with a breathless, almost frantic energy, punctuated by an orchestra of sound effects that would make Michael Winslow blush. The story begins with Brenda leaving a bar. The narrator says, Brenda was feeling a bit woozy, and you press a button to hear a comical sound, followed by a slide whistle. She stumbled to her car, the text continues, and a button provides the sound of someone falling into a pile of metal trash cans. It's slapstick at its most irresponsible. The book treats her severe intoxication not as a serious problem, but as a wacky, hilarious character trait like Goofy's clumsiness or Donald Duck's inexplicable rage. Things escalate when Brenda gets behind the wheel. The book cheerfully notes there's a 2-year-old passenger in the back seat. Press the button to hear him giggle, and sure enough, you get a sound clip of a baby's laughter, immediately followed by of tires as Brenda swerves to avoid a mailbox, which she then hits with a loud. Each near disaster is accompanied by an upbeat, cartoonish sound effect, turning a potentially fatal car ride into a zany madcap adventure. It's like wacky races, but with real-world consequences and a child endangerment subplot. The grand finale sees Brenda's wild ride come to a gentle, anticlimactic end. The police pulled Brenda over, the narrator coos, and took her on a gentle trip to a special hotel called Jail. You press the final button, expecting perhaps a siren or a stern voice, but instead you get the sound of a soft, tinkling lullaby. The book frames incarceration as a relaxing spa day. It's a story that teaches kids that drunk driving is a hilarious series of pratfalls that ends with a nice quiet nap in a government facility. It's not just dark humor, it's dangerously misleading whimsy. Our next selection, Mayor Dee Spilled Her Hot Dogs, is a book aimed at the preschool crowd, relying heavily on repetition and simple, catchy refrains. And what is the refrain, you ask? Oh no, Mayor Dee spilled her hot dogs. Oh no, she spilled them all over again. This phrase is repeated on every single page with increasing intensity, as Mayor Dee's day goes from a mild inconvenience to a full-blown, erotically charged, wiener-based catastrophe. It's a literary earworm of the most baffling variety. The book starts simply enough. Mayor Dee is at a picnic and she drops her lunch. Oh no, Mayor Dee spilled her hot dogs. But the illustrations are where things take a turn. The camera lingers with sensual close-ups on the fallen frankfurters. We see them glistening on the grass, nestled in their buns, rendered with a level of loving detail that feels inappropriate. The book seems less concerned with the spill and more with the inherent sensuality of processed meat products. It's like a food blog written by someone with a very specific and very public fetish. As the story progresses, the spills become more and more elaborate. Mayor Dee spills her hot dogs from a helicopter. She spills them while water skiing. She spills them during a press conference about a municipal bond issue. And with each spill, the refrain repeats, oh no, she spilled them all over again. The illustrations become more and more chaotic, with hot dogs flying through the air like meaty, cylindrical angels. It's a story that has one single solitary joke and commits to it with the kind of relentless dedication usually reserved for cult leaders. The climax of the book is a moment of pure, unadulterated madness. During the town's Founders' Day parade, a giant rogue hot dog cart careens out of control, leading to a massive multi-hot dog pile-up that somehow results in the decapitation of a background character, which is subtly hinted at by a rolling bowler hat. The final page shows Mayor Dee surrounded by a mountain of spilled sausages, shrugging as the text reads, "One last time, oh no, Mayor Dee spilled her hot dogs." It's a story that teaches preschoolers about repetition, public service, and the surprising fragility of the human neck. Prepare yourselves for a deep dive into bureaucratic absurdity with our next title. Second-hand underwater employee allegedly stealing runaway fish and wildlife. This is a book that attempts to explain the thrilling world of regulatory compliance and liquor store heists to children. The protagonist is a disgruntled aquarium employee who, as the title suggests, is accused of stealing fish and also, for reasons that are never explained, robbing the state-run fish and wildlife liquor store. It's a niche crime, to be sure. The story is haunted, both literally and figuratively, by the spectre of government oversight. The employee is constantly being followed by what the book calls evil baby safety spirits, which are depicted as ghostly, floating pacifiers and diaper pins that whisper sections of the state administrative code. Woo, they moan, you have violated statute 3.14159 regarding the unauthorized transport of protected trout across county lines. Woo, it's a horror story for libertarians, a paranormal procedural that's less about ghosts and more about proper permitting. The plot, such as it is, revolves around the employee's attempts to sell the stolen fish and liquor while evading the spectral bureaucrats. This culminates in a high-speed chase where the employee, drunk on stolen schnapps, commandeers an airport luggage cart and goes on a rampage through the terminal. The illustrations capture the chaos with glee, showing the cart ploughing through a duty-free shop, sending bottles of perfume and oversized Toblerone bars flying. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of mixing stolen sturgeon with grand theft auto. This book is a fever dream of legal jargon and slapstick chaos. It's trying to be a crime caper, a ghost story, and a lesson on administrative law all at once, and it fails spectacularly at all three. What lesson is a child supposed to take from this? That stealing is wrong unless you're being haunted by the spirits of workplace safety regulations, in which case all bets are off. It's a narrative mess, a story so convoluted and bizarre that the only logical conclusion is that it was written by an actual evil baby safety spirit as an act of revenge. Just when you thought the touch and feel genre couldn't get any more horrifying, we have this masterpiece. Erotic hot and cold fresh sushi sandwiches store managers fall from grace. Being on bubblegum-flavored cocaine is absolutely fabulous. The title alone is a journey. I mean, really, just saying it out loud feels like a fever dream. It's a touch and taste book, which is, and I cannot stress this enough, a profoundly terrible idea. The book charts the glamorous rise and spectacular fall of a sushi sandwich store manager, fueled by his love for a very specific and very fictional narcotic. The interactive elements are, well, the main draw here. The first few pages are dedicated to the sushi sandwiches. Taste the spicy tuna, one page invites, next to a patch of wasabi-flavored paper. Taste the cool cucumber, says another, with a minty strip, but then the book pivots. Now taste the manager's special bubblegum-flavored cocaine, it proclaims, next to a patch of paper that, one hopes, just tastes like bubblegum. It's an activity book that blurs the line between a fun sensory experience and a gateway to substance abuse. The narrative celebrates the manager's drug-fueled lifestyle as absolutely fabulous. We see him dancing on the sushi counter, making it rain with $100 bills and designing increasingly bizarre sushi sandwiches like the glitter and regret roll. The illustrations are, and the book makes a point of this, anatomically correct, which adds a whole new layer of horror when the manager starts hallucinating that the fish are speaking to him in ancient Aramaic. It's a glamorous, dazzling portrayal of a complete and utter mental breakdown. Of course, it all comes crashing down. The manager's fall from grace is as swift as it is fabulous. The final pages show him being led away in handcuffs, his sushi empire in ruins, but he's still smiling. A single bubblegum-flavored tear rolling down his cheek. The final taste patch is labeled the bitter flavor of rock bottom. This book isn't just telling a story, it's providing a full sensory simulation of a drug-addled descent into madness. It's fabulous, it's horrifying, and it's a guaranteed way to make sure your child never looks at a California roll the same way again. Get ready to give your jaw a workout, because our next book is a tongue-twister nightmare called, and I'll do my best here, Third-degree Rindfleischetikettierungsüberwachungs Aufgabenübertragungsgesetz, and the disorderly Pneumonultra microscopic silico-volcanoconiosis monster. For those of you who don't speak fancy German lawyer talk or doctor talk, the first word is a real but old German law about how to label beef, and the second is a type of lung sickness. This book, of course, is a monster story for little kids. The main idea is about a monster whose very name is just wrong for your mouth. This monster, born from a volcano and a stack of boring office papers, scares a small town. Its main weapon? Its own name. Person reading the story says the huge German and English words out loud with a big booming voice every time the monster shows up, which is, funny enough, on every single page. The point seems to be less about telling a story and more about giving the parent reading it a headache. It's a book that quite literally uses words as weapons. The story itself is a bunch of weird and sad things happening. A dog bites a high school student who then, in a totally separate event, dies from that lung sickness after breathing in volcano dust left by the monster. The book tells this with a funny, almost cheerful twist. Oh dear, it says, Timmy has pneumonultra microscopic silico-volcanoconiosis. What a silly mouthful. Let's all say it together. It's a book that finds humor in long words for diseases and teenagers dying too soon. The ending makes no sense, just like the beginning. The townspeople beat the monster not with weapons or smart traps, but by saying its full name correctly 3 times in a row, which makes it disappear into a pile of harmless, non-lawsuit-worthy beef labels. It's a story that teaches kids how important it is to speak clearly and about the super-specific dangers of German paperwork. It's a strange book, built so oddly and cheerfully morbid that you can't help but admire how incredibly bold it is. Let's meet our next protagonist, a young boy named Fugadabudi. Yes, Fugadabudi. The book, charmingly titled Hey Fuggadaboody's age-appropriate circular playthings, introduces us to a child who is, to put it mildly, deeply troubled. The book describes him as having emotional perversions, which it illustrates by showing him weeping with joy while watching a tire fire and laughing hysterically at a funeral. This is presented not as a cry for help, but as a quirky, lovable personality trait. The book is ostensibly about Fuggadaboody's love for circular playthings, hula hoops, yo-yos, and the like. But it quickly becomes clear that his interests are far more complex. The story takes a dark turn when it casually mentions that Fuggadaboody has contracted several STDs, which he believes he got from a contaminated frisbee at the park. The book includes a helpful illustrated chart of common venereal diseases presented with the same cheerful graphics as a guide to different types of butterflies. It's sex education via the most horrifyingly indirect route imaginable. The educational content doesn't stop there. In a chapter titled Fun with Hoops and Chemistry, Fuggadaboody teaches the reader how to create explosive compounds using common household items and a hula hoop as a mixing basin. Remember, kids, he says with a wink, the secret ingredient is instability. It's a science lesson that would get you put on a watch list. The book's format is playful and preschool friendly, with bright colors and simple sentences, which makes the deeply disturbing subject matter all the more jarring. Hey Fuggadaboody's age-appropriate circular playthings is a case study in what happens when you give a children's book author access to a medical dictionary and the anarchist's cookbook. It's a story that presents a deeply disturbed child as a role model and life-altering diseases as a minor inconvenience, like a scraped knee. The only lesson here is that some circular playthings, like the cycle of trauma, are best left untouched. This isn't just a book, it's a psychological evaluation in paperback form. Our next tale is a culinary and criminal adventure titled, Oh, Mr. Fucus vesiculosis tetrahydrozoline. Mr. Fucus vesiculosis tetrahydrozoline, whose name is derived from a type of seaweed and the active ingredient in eye drops, is the hero of this story. He is a man with a simple passion, an addiction to extremely spicy food. The book chronicles his digestive misadventures with a level of graphic detail that is both impressive and, honestly, deeply unsettling. It's a story about heartburn, but on an epic, almost biblical scale. The cast of characters surrounding Mr. Fucus is colorful. He gets his spicy peppers from a group of local fishermen who, the book casually reveals, are also involved in a sex trafficking ring. This is not a major plot point, it's just a bit of world building, mentioned with the same nonchalance as the weather. The fishermen sold Mr. Fucus a ghost pepper, the book reads, then they went back to their boat to kidnap a tourist. It's a shocking pivot that the book treats as perfectly normal, like a commercial break in the middle of a hostage negotiation. The plot, driven by Mr. Fucus's insatiable quest for heat, escalates wildly. His addiction leads him to consume a pepper so hot it causes a chemical mishap, accidentally creating a cloud of toxic gas that incapacitates the entire town. Amidst the chaos, there is a murder and a kidnapping, both of which are treated as minor subplots to Mr. Fucus's gastrointestinal distress. The real drama, the book insists, is not the crime spree, but the state of Mr. Fucus's lower intestine. This book is a masterwork of misplaced focus. It presents a world where a man's acid reflux is more important than a kidnapping and murder investigation. It's a story that juggles organized crime, chemical warfare, and spicy food with a complete lack of narrative priority. What are we supposed to learn from this? That a passion for habaneros can lead to unforeseen consequences, including but not limited to felony charges and a town-wide evacuation? It's a bizarre, spicy, and deeply criminal tale. Prepare to plumb the depths of absurdity with Poop and Squat Project Scald. Poop and Squat is, according to the book, the undisputed master of the municipal sewer system. He's a folk hero for the sanitation department. The story is told in a series of rhyming couplets that sound like nursery rhymes written during a fever dream. Poop and Squat, a man of might, keeps the city's pipes flowing right. He neglects his kids, it's sad but true, but he'd never neglect the poo for you. It's a tale of professional dedication and staggering parental negligence. The book is part of a larger series, and this particular installment, Project Scald, sees Poupin embarking on a wild ride through the sewer system on a modified toilet. He is accompanied by a cast of intoxicated animals who have inexplicably found their way into the city's plumbing. a gin-soaked badger, a whiskey-addled raccoon, and a flock of pigeons high on fermented berries. It's the wind in the willows, if all the characters had a serious substance abuse problem and lived in raw sewage. The publishers, clearly aware they had a hit on their hands, released the book with a series of variant comic book covers. There's the holographic cover, the foil embossed cover, and the limited edition scratch and sniff cover, which is an olfactory crime against humanity. The marketing gimmickry surrounding this book is almost as bizarre as its content. They're not just selling a story about a negligent sewer worker and his drunk animal friends. They're selling a collectible artifact of questionable taste. Poop and Squat Project Scald is a celebration of the grotesque. It's a story that rhymes child neglect with civic duty and finds adventure in the company of inebriated vermin. It's a book that asks the question, what if we made a story for children but made every single element as unpleasant as humanly possible? The answer is Poop Squat, a hero nobody asked for, on an adventure nobody needed, in a book that nobody in their right mind should ever read to a child. And finally, we arrive at our last book, a poignant story of mental illness and home furnishing titled There's a Schizophrenic on My Chair. The story is about Rory, a 7-year-old boy with schizophrenia, who is not in fact on a chair, but is the lead singer of a post-punk band called The Unreliable Narrators. The book seems to confuse schizophrenia with being edgy and artistic, which is a bold, if medically inaccurate, creative choice. The central conflict of the story is not Rory's mental health, but rather a dispute with a bear. Yes, a bear has ousted a mouse from Rory's favourite chair, and Rory, using the power of his post-punk music, must resolve the situation. The lyrics to his songs are included, with lines like, "The bear is a metaphor for bourgeois complacency. The chair is a construct of societal norms." Ah! It's a deeply intellectual property dispute played out through the medium of dissonant 3-chord rock anthems. The story takes an incredibly dark turn when a known child killer, who just happens to be wandering through the woods, is drawn in by the music. However, instead of posing a threat, he is so moved by Rory's artistic expression that he has a moment of clarity, repents his evil ways, and is then immediately mauled to death by the bear. The bear, having defended its territory, then gives the chair back to the mouse. It's a redemption arc that lasts approximately 12 seconds and ends in a gruesome death. Justice, I suppose, is served. The book concludes with the mouse writing a 5-star review of a nearby trash can, calling it a triumph of form and function, with a delightfully complex bouquet. This is the final, baffling, non-sequitur end to a story that began with childhood schizophrenia and ended with a bear mauling and a critique of garbage receptacle design. There's a Schizophrenic on My Chair is not just a book, it's an experience. A confusing, disturbing, and utterly nonsensical experience that leaves you with more questions than answers. The primary one being, what on earth did I just read? And there you have it, a whirlwind tour through a literary landscape so toxic, it should probably be declared a Superfund site. From pop-up DUIs and touch-and-feel liver disease to colouring in your own state-sanctioned execution, these books represent a spectacular failure of judgment on every conceivable level. They are monuments to bad taste, testaments to the idea that just because you can write a story about a sewer master who neglects his children, it doesn't mean you should. These aren't just bedtime stories, they're warnings. What's truly fascinating is the sheer commitment to their deranged premises. These authors didn't just dip a toe into the waters of inappropriateness. They did a cannonball from the high dive. They took the innocent, cherished formats of our childhoods and twisted them into something dark, something baffling, and something against all odds hysterically funny. It's a parody of reality so sharp it's hard to tell where the satire ends and the potential for a real misguided publishing deal begins. It's a reminder that the line between a children's book and a cry for help can sometimes be very, very thin. So the next time you're browsing the children's section, maybe look a little closer. Check that charming book about the friendly animal for any subplots involving grand larceny or unregulated pharmaceuticals. Because as we've learned tonight, you never know when you might stumble upon a story that's less about learning your ABCs and more about giving you and your child a PhD in existential despair. Thank you for watching. Good night.